Number 10, decimate. You hear this word constantly. A storm decimated a town. A company decimated its workforce. It sounds like total destruction. Rome meant something far more exact and far worse. Decimation punished an entire unit that broke and ran in battle. The soldiers were split into groups of 10. Each group drew lots. The man who drew short was beaten to death, not by an officer, by the other 9 men in his group, the men he ate with, the men he slept beside. That was the entire point. Rome wasn't just killing a coward. Rome made cowardice something your own friends had to kill you for. Crassus is said to have used it on his own legions in 71 BC. He was hunting Spartacus. The Romans recorded each case. It was rare enough to shock them, so the word meant exactly 1 in 10. Now it means everything. Almost nobody using it knows the 10 was ever there. Number 9. Travel. The word on your holiday photos used to mean torture. Travel and travail are the same word. They split apart in Middle English. Before that, travalen meant to toil, to suffer, to be in pain. Go back further and you reach the Latin tripliara, to torture. Behind that sits the tripalium. 3 stakes. Nobody knows what it looked like. Not one survived. Nobody drew a picture. What we know is this. Romans used a frame of 3 wooden poles to pin down animals that wouldn't hold still. Something with the same name was used on slaves. They were tied to it. Then came fire. The word crossed into French, then into English. By the 1300s it meant a journey. Because a journey then was closer to torture than to a holiday. Bad roads, no inns, bandits. Merriam-Webster still lists the torture instrument in the entry. Your travel agent is descended from a rack. Number 8, sarcasm. We already talk about sarcasm like it's violence. A cutting remark, a biting comment, a reply that tears someone apart. Those aren't metaphors. That's the original meaning leaking back through. Sarcasm comes from the Greek verb sarkazein. It means to strip off the flesh. Specifically the way dogs do it. The Greeks used it for animals tearing meat off a body. The root is sarx, flesh, a piece of meat. Over time, sarkazein picked up other uses. To bite your own lips in rage, to grind your teeth, to sneer. Then it meant to speak bitterly. That became sarkasmos, a sneering remark. It passed through Latin and reached English in the 1570s, and sarks had other children. Sarcophagus means flesh-eater. Greeks believed a certain limestone dissolved the bodies inside. Sarcoma is the tumor that grows in your flesh. Sarcasm, sarcophagus, sarcoma. Same family. None of them are good news. Number 7, toxic. Toxic relationship, toxic workplace, toxic person. The word is everywhere now. It started on the tip of an arrow. Ancient Greek had the word toxon. It meant bow. From that came toxikon. And toxikon didn't mean poison in general. It meant the poison you smeared on arrowheads. Archers dipped their points in it. A wound that shouldn't kill you now would. A graze on the arm becomes a death sentence 3 days later. That is what the word was built for. Latin borrowed it as toxicum and dropped the archery. By then it just meant poison. French turned it into toxique. English took it in the 1650s as toxic. There's a strange leftover in the family too. Intoxicate. The Latin intoxicare meant to poison someone. It only came to mean drunk in the 1570s. So when a bartender asks, "What's your poison?" that isn't a joke. That's the word remembering, where it came from. Number 6, bonfire. Most people assume bonfire comes from the French bon, meaning good, a good fire. Samuel Johnson thought so. He put it in his dictionary in 1755. Noah Webster believed it too. They were both wrong. The earliest written form is banefire. It appears in an English-Latin word book from 1483. The Latin given there is ignis ossesium, fire of bones. That is the original meaning. A bonfire was a large open-air fire for burning bones. The Oxford English Dictionary lists 2 obsolete senses: a fire to consume corpses, a funeral pyre, and a fire for burning heretics and banned books. In one Scottish town, old bones were collected and stored all year. They were saved for the midsummer fire, recorded until roughly 1800. So you're standing there with a marshmallow on a stick, using a word that described a heap of bones burning in a village square. Number 5, nightmare. The mare in nightmare is not a horse. It's a demon. In Old English, a mara was a spirit that came at night. It sat on your chest. It crushed the breath out of you. Not a bad dream, a creature. The word appears as early as around 700. Nightmare itself is recorded around 1300. The original definition is an evil spirit, one that afflicts people in their sleep with a feeling of suffocation. What they were describing is sleep paralysis. You wake up, you can't move, there's weight on your chest and something in the room with you. Every culture in Europe named the thing doing it. Old Norse Mara, German Nachtmar, French Cauchemar, the trampling fiend. Around the mid-1500s, the meaning slid from the demon to the sensation. By 1829, it just meant any bad dream. One more detail. The root behind mare may be the one that gave us murder and mortal. Number 4. Quarantine. Quarantine is simply the Italian word for 40. Quaranta giorni. 40 days. That's all it means. The horror is in why the number is 40. In the 1300s, plague ships were arriving in ports. Nobody knew what to do about them. Ragusa, now Dubrovnik, wrote the first rule in 1377. Ships and crews sat in isolation before anyone stepped ashore. 30 days at first. Other ports pushed it to 40. 40 is the version that stuck, partly because the number carried religious weight, partly because it was long enough that anyone infected would be dead before the gate opened. That's the mechanism. Quarantine was never a treatment. There was no treatment. It was a wait long enough for the sick to die offshore, where they couldn't take the city with them. And the people on those ships understood the arithmetic. They sat in sight of land, counting days, waiting to see who was still standing. Number 3. Assassin. Everyone knows this story. A medieval sect in the mountains of Persia, drugged with hashish, sent out to kill. Hashashin, hashish eaters, becomes assassin. Half of that is true. The killers were real. Hassani Sabah founded a Nizari Ismaili state at Alamut around 1090. They held fortresses. They spent months, sometimes years, getting close to a target, then killed him in public. The shock was the point. All real. The drug is not. There's no mention of hashish in the sources at Alamut. Hashashin was an insult thrown at them by rival Muslims. In Arabic, it meant low-class rabble, people of loose morals. It had nothing to do with what they smoked. Crusaders in Syria heard the insult. They assumed it was the group's name and carried it home. The original meaning was forgotten. The word stayed. So assassin doesn't come from a drug. It comes from someone's enemies calling them trash. Number 2. Handicap. This one runs the other way. You've probably heard the origin story. Cap in hand. Disabled veterans, so it goes. Given royal permission by Henry VII to beg in the streets. Sitting there with their caps held out. Handicapped. It gets repeated constantly. Usually by people explaining why the word is offensive. It's false. Handicap has nothing to do with begging. It comes from hand in cap. A barter game played in England in the 1600s. Two people wanted to swap items of unequal value. A third acted as umpire. All three put forfeit money in a cap. The umpire decided how much extra the cheaper item's owner had to add. Then everyone reached into the cap and pulled their hand out, open or closed. That decided whether the deal happened. Hand in cap became hand. Ish cap became handicap. By 1754, it meant evening out a horse race. The disability sense only arrives around 1900. The disturbing origin everybody repeats is the one that isn't real. Number 1. Deadline. You've got a deadline this week. Someone is waiting on something. It's a due date. It used to be a line on the ground. Crossing it got you shot. In 1864, the Confederacy built a prison camp at Andersonville, Georgia. It was designed for 10,000 men. By that August, it held more than 33,000. There were no barracks. One stream served as both drinking water and sewer. Roughly 45,000 Union prisoners passed through in 14 months. Nearly 13,000 died there. Inside the stockade wall, 20 feet in, the guards ran a low wooden railing. That was the deadline. Guards sat in raised posts called pigeon roosts, 90 feet apart. Orders were to shoot anyone who crossed it. Not climbed, crossed. One account said a foot or a finger over the line would bring a bullet. The word turns up in a Confederate inspector's report in 1864. It reached the public at the trial of the camp commander Henry Wirtz. He was hanged in 1865. It took until around 1919 for newspaper printers to borrow it. They used deadline to mean a time limit. Nobody shoots you if you miss yours. But the word was born somewhere they did. That's all for today. I'll be making more of these. Subscribe if you want them.